वो टीवी सर इलेक्ट्रॉनिक रह गया। वो तो गया भैया, Before we release the manifesto, we should also launch our election website.
Okay, this is the English one.
सर इधर सामने सर इधर की सर इधर भी देखिए
Stand up, sit down.
The election manifesto of the CPI calls for the people to firstly vote for the CPIM, to strengthen the left, and to work in order to that the CPIM proposes and stands for. In these 16th Lok Sabha election, in the few days since the announcement of the election, it has become clear that the elections are sought to be projected as a battle between certain leaders and personalities, and diverted from and devoid of the major issues and policies which should be of concern to the people who are going to elect a new Lok Sabha and a new government. We have made out a case in this manifesto that after the record of misrule of the Congress-led UPA government, in which the striking failures of this government have been the failure to curb price rise, which is relentless, the failure to generate employment, even though they claim high growth, the unprecedented record of what we need is, of course, the rejection of the Congress and the UPA and the ouster of the UPA government. But along with that, what is required is an alternative trajectory of growth and alternative policies. The BJP has not got any different set of policies to that of the UPA government. In all the major political and policy issues which created a record in corruption when it ran the state government in Karnataka. Its then Chief Minister was arrested on corruption charges. Today, of course, he's back in the BJP and is going to contest for the Lok Sabha elections. But on all the major range of issues, you see on economic policies, on the question of tackling price rise, the BJP has nothing new or nothing different to offer. As you all know, it was the CPIM and the left which have consistently opposed the deregulation of petroleum prices, demanded the reduction of central excise duties and customs duties on petroleum products, and a restructuring of the whole pricing of petroleum products. The BJP, when it was in government, the NDA government, did precisely what the UPA government was doing. It was also for deregulation. Significantly, the BJP has not opposed the doubling of the prices of natural gas, which we had opposed not only now but earlier, when they revised the price of natural gas, the whole KG Godavari Basin gas pricing. And retrieval of money gone abroad. We are saying stop the Mauritius route. Now this is a Mauritius route which was pioneered during the NDA government, which has been vigorously pursued by the UPA government, the same policy. So I'm not going into the details. Basically, what we are arguing is that what the country needs is an alternative based on alternative policies. And it is in that context that we would like you to read and study the proposals we have made in part 2. A gist of some of the major proposals have been given to you, circulated to you. Food security law, for instance, which is claimed to be one of the major achievements of the UPA government. As you know, we have criticized and not accepted this as an adequate food security law, the law that was passed in Parliament. We still demand a new law which will be based on universal public distribution system. The present law still targets, it's a targeted system. We say every family should get 35 kgs of food grains or per capita 7 kg at not more than 2 rupees. And this should be available to all except a small category reduce the taxes on petrol. This itself will bring down the cost of fuel and transportation and bring down inflation in the economy. And we will not allow futures trading in essential commodities and food grains. We had argued for this ban, prohibition even in the days of the UPA 1 government. And you will see that we have in all the various areas and spheres set out an agenda which will strengthen the democratic system, secularism and federalism. On center-state relations, a demand which I think finds universal support from all state governments, which is devolution of 50% of the total collection of central taxes to the states and transferring of centrally sponsored schemes under state subjects with funds to the center. Like that, we have set out, for example, on the land issue, which has become a very key and major question in our country. It's not only a question of stopping forcible land acquisition and providing for a fair deal, compensation and rehabilitation for land when it is taken with the consent of the landowners and others dependent on land. This country has forgotten the agenda of land reforms. Land reform laws are being reversed or diluted. And homesteads for both urban and rural landless, house sites for both urban and rural poor has become a priority. So there are a number of land issues on which we would like to bring in new it has become more important to stress the need for an independent foreign policy based on a non-aligned approach. You have forums now like BRICS and IPSA which need to be strengthened so that cooperation between the major developing countries and South-South cooperation takes place. And the second track is, unlike the Bharatiya Janata Party, which would like to spoil relations with all our neighbors. You hear the speeches of Narendra Modi, whether it's Bangladesh, whether it's Pakistan, whether it's China, whether it is Nepal, everybody is attacked. We argue for improving relations, settling issues which exist between these countries, whether it's Bangladesh, whether it is Pakistan, whether it's Nepal, especially our South Asian neighbors with whom we should develop very close ties of cooperation and friendship. Our party has consistently stood for 1/3 reservation for women in the parliament and state legislatures. As you know, it was passed in the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, but it is not passed in the Lok Sabha. So this becomes a priority for the new Lok Sabha when it is constituted. In the case of scheduled castes and scheduled tribes, apart from other issues, what we want is a central legislation which will ensure that the special component plan for SCs and the tribal sub-plan are given a legal footing so that plan outlays are made proportionate to the proportional population of SC and ST. The country as a whole and in the states. A legislation like this has already been passed in Andhra Pradesh after a long struggle, and we want that to be brought into the central legislation. And as far as the Adivasis are concerned today, not only is the question of the Forest Rights Act to be implemented fully, but also the alienation of Adivasis from their land and traditional habitats. We want that to be stopped and land illegally alienated from them restored to the tribal people. As far as minorities are concerned, two important issues are there. We have demanded after the Sachar report that a sub-plan for the minorities should also be there, just like the sub-plan for the tribal people. There is allocation of funds dedicated for the development and welfare of minorities in the various parts of the country. It was rejected. But we still believe that this is one of the better ways to ensure that minorities get equal access to development and socio-economic progress. The second is the Ranganath Commission, Mishra Commission, that is the commission which is there, permanent commission. In this first set of recommendations had argued for reservation for the minorities based on social and economic backwardness. This government has not implemented the major recommendation. What it tried to do was to say we'll give 4.5% reservation within the OBC 27% reservation, which is not at all adequate or in the spirit of the Ranganath Commission, Mishra Commission recommendation. We would like that to be implemented. In both education and health, it is the woeful lack of funds, public funding of health and education, public expenditure on health and education. 6% of the GDP for education was promised has never seen the light of day. And we say 5% should be of the GDP public expenditure on health. These are two major areas which are today subject to outright privatization, where common citizens are deprived of the right to education and health. So these are two major policy steps that need to be taken. And as far as wages and pensions are concerned, you're aware all the national trade unions have jointly been struggling for a statutory minimum wage of rupees 10,000 per month, and which is indexed to the cost of living, consumer price index. This should become a national norm, which will be, of course, periodically revised as per the consumer price index. The second is a national pension policy. A number of proposals have come in the recent period, but we think that at present 4,000 rupees or the 50% of the minimum wage at that time, whichever is higher, should be the minimum pension which should be available to every citizen of India who is entitled to get pension. I won't go into other details, there are so many other issues. For the youth of our country, we have first of all asked for the right to work to be made a fundamental right in the Constitution. Secondly, according to the government itself, 6 lakh posts are vacant in the government at all levels. You fill up these vacancies and you'll immediately see that a large number of the young people who are unemployed today will get some access to jobs. So these are the 2 steps which should be taken immediately. And as far as fighting corruption is concerned, it's good that a Lokpal Act was finally enacted. But we had said at that time that this Lokpal bill is not adequate because it does not cover the whole area of the corporate sector which has dealings with the government, PPP projects, and so on. All this must be brought under the purview of the Lokpal. As you will see, most of the major corruption scandals have involved corporates dealing with government. What is the 2G spectrum? So all that should be brought fully within the purview of the Lokpal. So we would like that dimension to be added and strengthen the Lokpal to that. In the case of fighting communalism, we have always wanted a law against communal violence and for rehabilitation and compensation for the victims of communal violence. This has not happened because the law has to keep in mind that federal structure is not infringed. The powers of the states regarding law and order cannot be violated. So we should make a law which will deal with that, but a law to counter communal violence and rehabilitation and compensation for victims of communal violence is required. And finally, I'd like to draw your attention to 3 or 4 major constitutional and legislative reforms that we advocate. The first is Article 3 of the Constitution needs to be amended so that in the case of a division of a state or a reorganization of a state, which powers of it lies with Parliament today, we are saying the consent of the state legislature concerned or the states concerned have to be taken. You cannot divide states in a federal setup without the approval or the concurrence of the state legislature. We have seen the experience of the division of Andhra Pradesh. In future, let the state legislature agree, then you can go forward to Parliament, can go forward towards bifurcation. We need that sort of amendment to the Constitution. The second amendment to the Constitution which we are asking for is that all international agreements and treaties should have the approval of Parliament. Today, your government, which can be a minority government, because in our system now we have coalition governments which are minority governments also, surviving on support from parties outside, can sign away various sovereign rights of the country through international treaties. And Parliament has no say in the matter. So that is why we want an amendment to make it clear that any international agreement or treaty requires the approval, explicit sanction and approval of Parliament. As far as the Armed Forces Special Powers Act is concerned, we have had enough discussion on this matter, and we would like the repeal of this act and replacement of that with a suitable law which will enable the armed forces to work, operate within that framework, legal framework. As far as the abolition of the death penalty is concerned, our party is the first national party to advocate the abolition of the death penalty and removal of it from the statutes. We think that is the step we should go towards, and we will work towards that in the new Parliament. As far as Article Section 377 of the Indian Penal Code is concerned, we are for decriminalization of consensual relationships, same-sex relationships. We have always stood for that, and we hope that Parliament will legislate so that decriminalization of such relations take place. So these are some of the points. There are many other issues in the manifesto which I'm sure you can read and then report more.
Yes. So, when you're talking about strengthening the left, is it particular to West Bengal alone? Because in Kerala, one left party is the UDF, and in Tamil Nadu, one left party is Jayalalitha. So there is only in West Bengal only there is so-called left unity. And how do you
see which left parties you may have? There's no left party in Jayalalitha today. There are 3 or 4 groups of the forward bloc in Tamil Nadu. So that's not the issue. The issue is the left parties are unitedly working, and in these elections you will find when the final list of candidates of the left are released that we will be fighting the maximum number of seats in the history of the left parties in Parliament, and we will be fighting them united.
Which one are the left parties you're talking about? That's my question. Is RSP a part of the left parties?
Of course. Well, but just because one state unit defects, that RSP does not cease to exist. And you are from Kerala, you should know the history of the RSP defecting earlier also. Yes.
Mr. Karan, at one side there is UPA, on the other hand we have BJP and the NDA alliance. So where do you find yourself? Do you find what is the position of this third alternative or the left in this political scenario, especially after that platform you created for the third alternative was almost crumbled?
Well, I don't understand how you say it crumbled. Because when we met on the 25th of February, 9 political parties were there. 2 did not attend, but they also have taken a position that they are fighting both Congress and BJP. What we said is we are going to be together. We are interested in fighting Congress and BJP, and we hope to provide an alternative, the concrete shape of which will take place after the election. When we had a discussion among all these parties, it was clear to us that we will work to maximize our strength and performance of these parties in their respective states and regions, and we will pool our resources and strength after the elections. So that is going to happen after the elections.
आपने कहा कि लेफ्ट पार्टी सबसे ज्यादा सीटों पे अब तक के इतिहास में सबसे ज्यादा सीटों पे लड़ेगी। क्या आपने कोई टारगेट भी रखा है कि किन सीटों पे आपका टारगेट, आपका अंदाजा है कि आप जीतेंगे?
नहीं, टारगेट कोई नहीं है, लेकिन हमारी पार्टी की ओर से हम कह सकते हैं कि सबसे ज्यादा सीटें हम इस बार लड़ेंगे और कम 100 के करीब सीटों को लड़ने वाले हैं।
You are telling that only in one state it has happened, but the RSP General Secretary is firm on that issue till now.
I'm telling you that one unit of the RSP in one state has defected, that's all.
RSP is available in 2 states. Totally.
Do you think that
When you ask them how many states they exist,
Then produce the only
What is the
one.
stand of
well,
the
they exist in other states. Bihar they exist, Odisha they exist. They're putting up candidates for your information.
Have you spoken to the General Secretary of RSP?
I am telling you my party's understanding of what happened in Kerala. That's all. They already said it publicly. The LDF has said it publicly, and the RSP, All India, has not recognized these people anymore as RSP.
do you think that the non-Congress, non-BJP
After this first correspondence, after your so-called curtain, could you please tell us which all parties do you have arrangement or seat arrangement or any political understanding for the 2014?
As I said, this so-called what you said, it was so-called, because we never called ourselves a third party. We said we are coming together. And if you recall, I had explained before this meeting that this is not predicated on any electoral alliance or tie-ups between the constituents of these parties. As far as my party is concerned, we were only looking for an electoral tie-up or understanding in Tamil Nadu with the All India Anna team. That has not happened. But we were clear from the outset that this is not the base on which we are going to cooperate. The left party is cooperating with Samajwadi Party or with BJD or Janata Dal S or the other parties is not predicated on our having an electoral understanding necessarily with these parties.
do you think that the non-Congress, non-BJP front could have been more coherent if you had agreed on a prime ministerial candidate who would be the face of your front?
In principle, we are against having a prime ministerial candidate because we believe, and I explained this at that time, we are parties based on a federal principle that we represent parties representing different regional parties and state-based parties. Now it will be wrong for us to project one leader as a prime minister after the elections when we will sit together, if the question arises or the need arises, we will decide upon a prime ministerial candidate or nominee. This happened earlier in 1996, as you know, and it happened earlier in 1989 also, when a non-Congress prime ministerial candidate had to be decided.
2009 में इतिहास में सबसे कम सीटें आपको मिली थी जब से पार्टी आप लोग चुनाव लड़ रहे हैं। इस बार के चुनाव में आपको सबसे ज्यादा सीटें बंगाल से मिलेगी या बंगाल से बाहर मिलेगी? बोलना।
Anybody who knows our party, हमारी पार्टी के बारे में समझदारी है तो जानते हैं कि हमारे सीटें सबसे ज्यादा बंगाल, केरल और त्रिपुरा से आते हैं।
बंगाल
तो ये तीनों राज्यों से सबसे ज्यादा सीटें मिलने का हमारा उम्मीद है और संभावना है। बाकी कुछ और राज्यों में हो सीटें मिल सकता है, लेकिन ज्यादातर सीटें इन 3 राज्यों से आती हैं।
Kerala who will lead the campaign, whether it will be Pinarayi Vijayan or
They are not leading the campaign business. For Lok Sabha, they are not leading. They are none of them are fighting the election.
क्या अभी भी इस बात की संभावना है कि जो साथी पार्टियां आपके साथ आई थी, जैसे कि समाजवादी पार्टी, क्या उनके चुनाव प्रचार में लेफ्ट की तरफ से, सीपीएम की तरफ से, क्या उनके चुनाव प्रचार में आप में से कोई जाएंगे? क्या अभी भी इस बात की संभावना है कि दूसरी पार्टियां तो आपके साथ?
इस पर हमारी बातचीत हुई थी उस समय। हमने तय किया था कि सब पार्टियों को अपने अपने इलाकों में, क्षेत्रों में सबसे ज्यादा ध्यान देके, जोर देके काम करना पड़ेगा। तो उसमें अभी आपसी सहयोग इतना तो हो सकता है, कुछ जगहों में हमारे उनके उम्मीदवारों को हम समर्थन कर सकते हैं।
Okay, you have asked about strengthening the left unity. Manifesto, you have asked about strengthening left unity. But do you think that fielding independent candidates will help in this objective, left objective?
Yes.
More independent candidates.
We have had this tradition in Kerala, I think you're referring to Kerala, of putting up candidates supported by the left. Every election, we have put up candidates supported by the left. Generally, they are left inclined or they are genuinely independent, but they are prepared to come onto a left platform. So this will help the left to gather wider support. And we have had members of parliament and also members of the legislative assembly who have been independents, who have been supported by the CPIM and the left. This has always happened. Even in 2004, you know, in Kerala, the MP from Ernakulam was an independent supported by the left.
You have already ruled out joint campaign. You have ruled out any seat sharing or understanding. So what do you mean by
So joint campaign will be there in the sense in some states where we exist, where we are not fighting seats. We will extend support to the parties which we want to cooperate.
प्रकाश साहब इंटर स्टेट रिलेशंस की बात बोल रहे थे और कहा कि फेडरलिज्म को ध्यान में रखना चाहिए, इसमें 50% टैक्सेस जाने चाहिए। एक फेडरल फ्रंट की कॉल दिया है टीएमसी सुप्रीमो ने, उसका भविष्य आप कैसे देखते हैं?
अगर फेडरल फ्रंट का मतलब यह है कि बिना लेफ्ट के कोई वैकल्पिक मोर्चा बन सकता है, वो बनने वाला है।
कॉमरेड, महिलाओं के लिए आप रिजर्वेशन के लिए आपने बोला कि पार्लियामेंट में इस बार वापस आएंगे आप अपनी सीट जो आप बोल रहे हैं 100 सीट लगभग आप लड़ेंगे, तो कितने परसेंट आप देने वाले हैं इस बार?
अभी तक हमारे अंदाजे में अभी तो 100 सीट तय नहीं हुआ है, करीब 90 सीट तय हुआ है। अभी तक 12-13% है महिला।
बीजेपी कैंडिडेट इज नरेंद्र मोदी।
We have already
Narendra Modi in Varanasi.
I think 1 month ago we have already announced
मोदी
Varanasi.
के लेटर
We already have a candidate in Varanasi.
we have put up in Banaras.
I said we have a candidate there. I don't know if you know, Banaras is a seat we have been fighting always, except for once or twice. We have always fought in Banaras. No, whatever our strength, we've always had a seat. Varanasi seat we have always fought. We fought in 2004. I don't think we fought in 2009. But we are fighting this time. We have already announced.
What's the level of expectation in West Bengal? What's the level of expectation in West Bengal? Very, very.
Campaign was started. We will wait and see. हम तो हमेशा जाते हैं बनारस। हम तो वहाँ 2 बार हम कैंपेन के लिए वहाँ टिके रहे हैं वाराणसी में 91 और 96।
Prakash, you have not given a call for a similar duty or a government. And you have just